Hi, and welcome to another practice session. We're going to spend some time looking at brush knee, and in particular, the linked brush knees. So let's start by getting in and out of 70-30s easily, and what better move for that than doing a little warm-up with the deer. So start with your feet in a V. You're going to turn toward the outside of your rear leg and step out. Make sure your foot that steps out is pointing straight ahead. And unfurl your antlers. Come back to the V, and now it's the other foot, pointing it straight out. And let's just move in and out of this, get warmed up. Get a sense of where that 70-30 is. I mean, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this, there's always a chance to spend a little effort on looking at where your feet land and making sure that you're putting your feet where you think you're putting your feet, as well as where you intend to put your feet. So, stepping out, shifting and turning, letting your antlers expand, light, easy, and a little smile, because you're a happy deer. Oh, breathing, relaxing, and just moving in and out of the 70-30s, gathering and expanding. Gathering, changing feet. You can have another expand, gather, and expand. And we'll do another round just moving through it, and then I'm going to stop you. So not this time, but this next time. When you get to the final posture, I want you to stop and take a look at your feet. Let your arms down. Don't worry about your arms right now. Take a look at your feet. Really take a good look at them. Is your front foot pointed exactly straight ahead so that your knee and your toes and your belly button are all pointing straight ahead? Your rear foot is at a comfortable angle, somewhere between 30 and 45 degrees, and your rear leg is hanging away from your quad, your hip socket. So if it's not just the way you want it, adjust. Make it be the way you want it. Make sure you have some space. You can see here there's floorboards between my two heels. You want to make sure there's a place to sit down in there. This is the 70-30 stance. Get it the way you want it, and then spend a moment just feeling it so that you know what it feels like. And now we'll do it on the other side. So come back to the V, step out. You can do a little deer, and then check your feet. Same deal. Front foot's pointing straight ahead. Your knee is aligned with it. Your thigh is also aligned with it. It's not out here where your thigh has to make a sharp angle to stay with your foot. Sitting down, comfortable. Rear foot is at a comfortable angle. And now let's do this again. And notice that where you start your back foot should be the place that you don't have to fix it. I mean, it's okay if you do. Make sure if you do, it pivots on the heel. But see if you can't come back to a position that you know is a good place for your rear foot when you step straight ahead for the other one. So we'll just do this a few more times. Kind of a warm-up for spending some time looking at our 70-30s. So each time paying attention to how your feet land. Stepping, heel first, no weight, foot straight ahead, shifting into it, letting the rear leg relax, coming back, making a V, knowing that that back foot is at a place that you can comfortably move into your 70-30, and so on. So one more round of this, and then we'll do a first third. Great. So let's do some Tai Chi. And begin. Okay. So the brush knees, the linked brush knees. Jana Matan told us that Tam Gibbs, one of Professor's top students in New York, came and spent the summers with them after they moved to Boulder and the professor was gone. And he would just walk around their house and patio all day doing the linked brush knees. That was his pastime, if you will, was just walking around like that. So there's a little story about the linked brush knees, and we're going to spend some time looking at this, probably spend all week. There's a lot to it. So I want to start with a good feeling of liveliness. So I want you to look at these linked movements for the bellows. We call it the bellows, that feeling of gathering and expanding, gathering and expanding. So, when we do it in the form, we've just come here, and this is expansive, and then we gather, and step, and expand. And then you gather, and you expand, and you gather, and expand, etc. So, we'd like to do a little bit of just the walking 70-30s. We're not going to go into low punch, so that means it's a little different than what we do in the form. We're going to do it on both sides. So once you've done it, this is the way it is in the form. And then here, we're going to do it just like it's another brush knee, so that we can just keep linking these together. And I want to start by walking with our backs to the camera, because when we do this in class, we tend to all go to one end of the room and then we march across and everybody's following the person in front of them. And it's a little complicated trying to figure out how to put this on video, so we'll do it a variety of ways, but I want you to be able to just, wherever you're looking at your screen, be able to just follow along as if you're marching behind us. So we're going to start out that way. And I will talk you through expanding and gathering. So we've just done turn and strike with heel. You've come back to what Baton called the Taoist sleeping posture here. Right hand is folded over, ready to go into brush knee. Your left foot is here by your right ankle, and your left hand is protecting the groin, palm facing the body. Sink and step, and go. Expansive. Gathering. Expansive. Gather, expand, gather, expand, gather, expand. So just feel this movement having a life, a breath. Once you gather, you expand. The conclusion of the expansion begins the next gather. I think we could probably fit one more. I don't know if you folks playing at home can, but okay. And as you're doing this and you run out of room, just readjust. One way that you can readjust is to just step back and go back to the place where you have some space and just go again. And then when we continue going and you are out of room, you can just go back and catch the next wave with us. That may be as easy as the doing what we, the small form where you just keep readjusting your feet. That can be kind of confusing. So I think that's probably the way to sort of stay with us as we do this little marching activity. Lee is now demonstrating. So let's do it again, just another round of that, kind of get our brush knee legs on. So we've just, this one, your foot is facing the wall. You've just finished the turn and strike with heel. You've come back into a small place, step out, and shift. Let everything come back in. Just following the movement that once something expands, it starts to contract. Once something contracts, it wants to expand. And we'll stop there. So before you get out of the posture, let go of your hands, take a look at your feet. How are you doing? Is your front foot pointing straight ahead? Is your rear foot at a comfortable angle? Do you have some width? Can you sit down in your stance, squaring to the wall? Rest your legs. So there's a lot here. We're going to take it bit by bit. The thing I want you to just feel is that your feet are supporting what's going on. So, if I do this walking toward you, got this one. Now this is one of the hardest steps right here, because I'm facing over here, my foot is at 90 degrees to where I'm headed, and I need to step this foot wide enough that I'm going to have a good stance when I shift, but I need to make sure that the foot goes straight to the wall. It's really easy to end up doing a little bit of this and a little bit of this where I have no width. So from this place, you've got to sit down and step out. Give yourself a little movement toward the left so that you can end up in a stance that you have some width in. So that's the first thing. You want your feet in those good positions before you move on. Then when you sit into the corner, the foot comes with you. It's not just an action in the foot, it's the whole body. You sit into your rear leg and you spiral toward the corner, and the foot pivots on the heel, and it doesn't go too far, it just pivots with you. You turn, the foot turns. Then you're going to step. When you move into your front foot, you're leaving your rear foot behind. We'll spend more time on all this, but just leave it behind, coming up on the ball, and then when you sit down to step, make sure you step heel first with enough width, and the toes are pointing actually straight ahead, not a little bit angled out. So you need to, even as you're in an angle, you need to know where straight ahead is. So, point it right out there, and then you can shift into it. It helps if you don't have to turn that back foot in anymore. So that's part of getting the correct angle when you sit into the back leg. And if you just let the foot turn with the turning of the body as you shift, then it will probably be in the right place for you. You shift, leave your rear foot behind, sink and step, making sure you have width, making sure the foot's pointing straight ahead, and moving into the next one, ideally keeping the rear foot at the same angle, and that would be a comfortable place for you. So these are some of the beginning things to look for to make this move work. For some reason, it's really easy for this marching to start losing its orientation, to start going off to the corner, or for the feet to get wider and wider as you take each step. So getting a good sense of where that stepping is the first step to getting this move to feel good. Let's do another round of the marching, and this time we'll just do, I guess we would, in the form we go this way, from facing the front, so we might as well do what we would be doing if we were doing a whole form and just came up to this place and decided to not move on and just keep marching. So that's what we're going to do. So from here, withdraw, sink and step, and go. That one you turn your foot in. But now, see if you can just keep your feet in a good shape. It angles just right when you sit back, stepping straight ahead when you go into the front, letting the turning of the foot follow the motion of the waist. So you turn everything, and that's what moves that foot. And because you're using your rear leg, your front foot is empty, and it just turns on the heel with you. Not a separate thing that you do down at your foot. And we'll stop there. Let's do it again. You know, in class, we just march and march and march and try to get this to feel right. So we'll do a bunch of different focus on different parts. But right now, we just looked at the feet. I want you to, again, just feel that the whole motion is happening at once. So, from here. Everything gathers, expands, gathers, expands, gathers, expands, gathers, expands, etc. Letting it feel lively and light. And the more you can make the motion happen as one thing playing out, the better it will feel. Rather than micromanaging hands and feet. We'll get into the details of it. But just let the movement flow. And hold it there. Go ahead and let your hands down. See how your feet did. Did you land where you wanted to? Does it feel comfortable? Can you really sit down in it? Did you keep moving straight ahead? Did things get too wide or fall apart, end up facing an angle? All these things are what you want to look for and figure out what's going wrong. You know, I talked about turning in that back foot, the front foot when it's going to become the back foot. And if it turns from here, because this leg is free and empty, it's not going to turn too far. If instead I sit into the back leg and turn my foot, right away, it's going someplace that is too much for me. And so then I've got a bunch of problems that just start happening. And I didn't even have to think, well, I'm going to turn my foot too far so that people will see where too far is. If you do it from the foot, chances are it will be too far, because it becomes a big, gross motion. What you want to do is sit into your back leg, free the front leg, and just turn, letting it pivot, following the movement of the waist. And I'm not agonizing. Oh, I gotta turn really far. It's easy, it's gentle. It's a little bit of just a little to the right and a little to the left. It's just following the motion of the waist. There's nowhere you're going in those places. You're going toward the corner, but do this with me, and you can change legs, but just stand in a 70-30, and as you sit into your back leg, think spiraling into the back leg and freeing the front leg and letting it just turn as much as it turns. And you can come back, square it back up again, come back to your 70-30, and do that again. Just go directly to the bottom of your rear foot and spiral around that axis and let it play out down into your foot. I'll come back again, and then some of the things that happen that take us away from that. Sit back, come all the way back, and then turn and feel that disconnect. And right away, my foot turned further there than I really want it to. So come back to a good position and just drop into your rear foot, free your front foot, and turn, and let the foot follow that turning. That's really all you need to do. So let's just do one more quick round. We'll just do a couple, and then I'll pass it over to Lee, and we can get into some more of the details. So, try not to fall over this time. Didn't work. There you go. Nice and easy, spiraling, shifting, gather, and expand. Spiral. Notice how the movement just plays out down to your foot. And we'll just stop there. And I'll let Lee take over. So easy does it. All movement comes from the dantian, even the turning of your empty leg.
Okay, let's look at this some more. I want to spend more time on the thing Beth was just talking about how the spiraling into the back leg turns the front leg. So do this with me. Take a 70-30. And so, sit exactly square in the 70-30. And we're not going to turn our front foot. So as you sit back, open towards the outside of the front foot, and notice the place where you can't really turn any further because the foot is holding you back. And come back up to the front. And sit back. As you do that, you're shifting and turning towards the outside of the front foot. You'll notice a place where you can't turn any further because the foot didn't move. And do that on the other side. 70-30. Make sure you start out square. If you start out with your foot at an angle, this won't work the same way. So make sure the foot is square. In this room, it's easy because our floorboards are running the direction we want, so I can look at my foot and make sure it's running along a floorboard. So sit back and spiral and stop when your front leg starts to restrict you. And come back into the front. And sit back and spiral and notice when the front leg really needs to move. Stop right there. So there's a couple things that are important in this. When we teach you the form in the first place, we separate the shifting and the turning, right? We talk about going into ward off left, and we say shift, 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 shift. More weight forward, waist to the corner, turn the waist rear foot on heel. When you go into ward off right, it's the same deal. Shift, 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 shift. When most of your weight is forward, now turn the waist rear foot on heel. And so what we're doing with that is separating shifting from turning, so that you actually understand those are two separate actions, shifting and turning, and making sure that you have turn left over. Because what we've seen is if we don't do that, people get turned to the front before they've tried to turn their rear foot in, and then they have to just move it. So we really, for beginners, we want them to stay with their waist in the corner until the last minute when they turn. So that's for beginners. For people who've practiced longer, you should be shifting and turning together so that you don't shift then turn or turn then shift. You do them together. And so when Beth talks about this spiraling, that's what's going on. I'm here in my 70-30. If I shift back and then turn, that's not the spiraling. So what I need to be doing is spiraling like an auger or a drill that's going down into the ground. And it's going down into the ground in my rear leg. And so as I shift, every time I shift, I've turned a little bit more as you do this. So let's do this again. We won't move our feet yet. I want you to spiral, auger into the ground, and then we'll shift, then turn, and then we'll spiral again. So 1 foot forward, doesn't matter, we're going to do both sides. So as you sit back, it's like there's a big wheel, and the wheel is turning, your weight is shifting, your waist turns. You'll stop when your front foot keeps you from being able to move. And come back and do that again. Spiral, auger into the rear leg, a drill going down through the bubbling well of the rear leg. Come back to the front. Now this time, shift, then turn. Shift, so all your weight's in the back, and now turn. And feel how different that is. Do that again. Square, shift straight back, no turning. When your weight's all in the back, turn. You probably have a different experience of the restriction of the front leg. And this time, spiral. Spiral, augering into the rear. Stop when the front leg restricts you. Do it on the other side. Make sure you start out in a good 70-30, 30 to 45 degrees between the feet, waist square. Auger into the rear, shifting and turning. Stop when the front leg restricts you. Come back to the front. Turn the big wheel, drill down into the ground through the bubbling well of the rear leg. Stop when the front leg restricts you. This time, shift, then turn. Sit back all the way. Now turn. Notice what that front leg feels like. And do it once more. Augering, shifting and turning, spiraling. Spiral into the rear leg. Stop when the front leg restricts you. So that having that spiral happen is really important. And if you watch where my torso is. Would you do the head thing? Watch where my torso is. If I spiral, yeah, it moves. If I shift, then turn, it's a whole different thing. So the augering, spiraling, I'm almost in place. I mean, I'm not. I moved some. When I separate, shift, then turn, it's a whole different thing. So the spiraling will have less external motion and a lot more change happening on the inside. The separating, shifting, and turning has a lot happening on the outside and, not coincidentally, less happening on the inside. So when you do this and you use that turning to move your front foot, what happens is I'm spiraling, turn. Right about here, I've got most of my weight in the back and my front leg is starting to restrict me. So if I release that foot, now the foot turns. So it doesn't do this. It doesn't turn right away. You're going to start spiraling, and when you get to the place where the front leg is starting to restrict your motion, that's why I had you stop there, you release the front leg, and that will let the foot turn. And watch what happens here. I'm spiraling down into the rear and turning, and when I release the foot, look how everything is exactly lined up with my hip. I'm putting the hands here so that I know where my hips are. This one's going to help me. My back hand is going to help me remember to spiral down, and my front hand is going to let me see that at the completion of this turn here, the knee, the toe, and the hip are all exactly in a line. So do that with me. Start out 1 foot forward. I love making these little hand motions because part of the problem that happens for us is the internal is too small. It's internal. It's hard to find. And so if we make little hand motions, a lot of times that can help you perceive the direction that's going on. And so I'm going to start out with my hands pointed straight ahead. My rear hand is going to be pointing down towards my foot to help me remember to spiral into the rear leg. My front hand is going to stay here, pointed just where my hips are, so that when I finish, I can see that the hand is pointed where now the hip and the toes are. So start out in the front, square both of your hands on your hips, take your rear hand. As you spiral, rear hand drops, and as you turn, front hand follows the hips, and the toes and knees should be exactly in line with the hips. So do that again. Spiraling, rear hand is dropping, turning, foot moves. And notice how my foot doesn't move right away. It waits until most of my weight is in the back. One more time. Spiraling, shifting, and turning. Then the front foot goes. It should be right in line with your front hand. Do the other side. Get those hands on the hips so you know where you are. The rear hand is going to point down. The front hand's going to be like a weather vane pointing where your waist is going. So spiral, shifting and turning, and then front foot moves. It should be right on the line with your hands. Back to the front. Get your hands there. Rear hand's going to drop. Spiral, shift and turn. Foot, knee, toe, all in a line. And one more time. Spiral and turn. So this is what Beth was talking about, that the foot follows the waist rather than being moved. So the other thing that you could do is you could turn your foot. And when I turn my foot, just like she said, I'm almost guaranteed to have it have turned farther. So do that with me. Make it happen from the foot so that you know. Start out with your hands on your hips. As soon as you start spiraling, turn the front foot and stop when you get back and look where your foot is. It's almost guaranteed to be outside of where your hips are. And do that again. Force the foot, turn, and look where it is. This time spiral and let the foot turn. Shifting and turning. Oh, the foot turns. And look where it is. Should be in line with your hips. Do the other side. Get your weather vanes installed on your hips. And we're told Professor Chung used an image of headlights, like the headlights on a car. So you've got headlights on your hips, and they're beaming straight ahead. So force it. Move the foot. Look where the foot ended up, probably outside of your headlights. Come back. Move the foot. Look where it is, probably outside your headlights. This time, spiral and allow the foot to move. So you're shifting and turning. Oh, the foot turns. And look where it is, probably a lot closer in line with your headlights. So that's going to illustrate a thing that happens a lot which is that it takes time for the motion to get from the waist out to the extremities. So I do something in the waist and hips, and then it takes a little time for that to play out into the foot, rather than the foot moving in lockstep. So this happens going from push into single whip. I'm here in push, I sit back, and when I turn, I don't just bring my foot in lockstep. Let me do it. I'm not sure which direction to go, so you'll see. So I'm in push here. I sit back. If I keep it in lockstep, I've picked my foot up and watch my right hand and my foot. The two of them just stay with each other. That's forced. That's not what we actually do. You sit back and turn, and as I turn, see here, my hand has turned and my foot hasn't moved yet. And as I keep right about here, that leg starts to restrict me, and so I release it when I turn, and the foot comes with me. And there's a couple things that will happen there. One of them is that you'll feel that your feet are following what the waist is doing, which gets you to the place where the waist motion can cause the feet to move. And it's also how you get the foot to go farther. So watch my front foot as I'm doing this. If I sit back and I pick the toes up and I turn, it's really hard to get the foot past the corner, right? See, it's going towards the front corner. If I do instead, turning until it does a slight restriction and then I let it go, the foot actually turns further. So the whole problem of going from push into single whip is that you can't get your feet to turn enough, and you can't get them to turn enough because you're forcing it. So if you let the foot follow the waist, you'll have a much better chance of that. So I know we're working on brush knee, but let's do push into single whip anyway. Beth will face the same nominal direction that you are. I will face so that you see me in the camera when we do this. So start out in push, sit all the way back. This time you shift without turning. And now turn and leave your foot behind. And notice when you start to feel that slight restriction to your motion across your front hip. And then I stopped you so it won't work right. So come back to push. This time when you feel that slight restriction, release your foot and allow it to turn to follow the waist. So sit back, turn, release the foot, drop the knee. Look where your foot ended up. And do that once more. Back into push, sit back, turn. When you feel the slight restriction, release the foot, drop the right knee. Look where your right foot ended up. This time force it. Sit back, pick the ball of the foot up, notice that alignment between right foot and right hand, and turn, turning the foot all the way, and notice what's happening here. Because your leg is activated, it's going to keep you from being able to let that foot go as far, and your foot probably did not get as far as it would have if you had released it. So force it again, sit back, pick the ball of the foot up, turn, feel the right hip, right leg restricting your motion. Okay, so we hate that. So let's do it the right way, one closing time. Sit back, turn, release the foot, let the right knee drop. Look where your leg ended up. Probably a lot better. So this is all through the form that the hands don't move, hands never stop moving. All the motion in the hands is caused by and directed by the waist. Well, it's true for the feet too. The feet, all their motion is caused and directed by the waist. And what we tend to do is step. We put our feet places. We don't tend to create the condition in the body that can result in the foot stepping. And so that can be quite challenging. You know, you're trying to do one of these kicks and you're trying to have it come down to the ground and come out through the leg. That can be quite difficult. A good place to start is these little places where you're pivoting your foot and notice yourself forcing it. So in the brush knees, we're sitting here in brush knee. I sit back, I'm spiraling. Oh, my foot turns. And voila, it's aimed towards the corner. I come to the next one. I sit back, I'm spiraling. Notice that my foot doesn't turn right away, and then it turns. It has that same feeling of release and relief, and it's pointed to the correct direction. So let's do our marching brush knees another time, and I want you to really pay attention to that moment of sitting back and turning and then releasing the front foot, and observe that it is now in a line with the hip, knee, toe, all pointed the same direction. So, yeah. So, la-di-da. And so, brush knee, left foot forward, right hand high. Okay, sit back, spiraling. Oh, front foot is released, it turns. And continue the next one. Right foot forward, right hand high. Sit back, spiraling. Release the front foot, it turns. Stop. Look if it's in a line with your hip, knee, toe all together. Continue. Spiral. Release the foot. And continue. Spiral. Release the foot. Look at the angle. Continue. Sit back, spiraling, release the leg. Look at the angle. Continue. One more. Sit back, spiraling, release the foot. Look at the angle. Continue. So this is in our theme of how do you move without force? How do you create the conditions that will get your body and your motion to be what you want? How do you set it up so that when you let go, you get the gesture you want? And so this sitting back, this coming back here and turning, right here, I'm creating a condition in my leg that when I let it go, the leg will move, versus forcing it where I move the foot. And the thing about force is that you always do too much. When you force something, you're always going to do too much. Because Wolf used to say to us, you can't talk and listen at the same time. And so when you're using force, this was specifically in push hands, when I'm using force, I'm talking. And that means I can't be listening to my partner while I'm doing that. And that means I won't be in the moment, I won't be aware of the small changes that they're making, and very quickly that'll mean I'm getting tossed. Same thing happens in your body. You can't talk and listen at the same time. If you use force, you're talking. And that means you won't be able to listen precisely to what's happening in your body, and you'll do too much. When I sit back here and I use force and I turn this foot, it doesn't matter how hard I try to get to the corner. Because I'm talking, I'm not going to be able to hear right when I get to the corner. But when I do this, and I create the condition that when I let go, the foot moves, I'm listening all the way through there. I'm listening as I create that condition, and then my action is to release and let the change I want happen. Gosh, let's just do that once more. I will try not to talk so much, so let's just do it continuously across. I will remind you to release. Okay, we've kicked, and go ahead. Okay, watch that front leg. Watch that front leg. Think about spiraling rather than shifting all the way back, so the torso moves less. Spiraling. Spiral. Create the conditions. Release the front foot. Spiral. Create the conditions. Release the front foot. Once more on each side. Great. So that should give it a slightly different rhythm, and it should keep you from getting discombobulated. It should keep the body from becoming disordered. And by allowing the leg to respond to the situation you've created and affect the change you want, your whole body will stay more integrated. So then another big thing, and I think that'll probably be it for us today, is the use of the tripod. So, just to review, the weight-bearing bones in the foot, there's the heel, there's the ball behind the big toe, and there's the ball behind the little toe. And so those three create what we call the tripod. In the middle of that tripod is the bubbling well. The bubbling well does not touch the ground. So your foot doesn't mash down on the ground like this. What happens is if it's my hand, then I've got the ball behind the index finger, the ball behind the pinky and the little finger, and the heel of the palm. And those three in the hand are the tripod, and the space, the heart of the palm, the laogung that corresponds to the bubbling well in the foot. The heart of the palm would not be on the ground. I'm not trying to flatten my hand down. And the hand, it's actually, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but for me, it'd be really hard for me to force the palm flat because the base of the thumb and all the other bones get in the way. So there's just kind of a natural hollow there. There should be a similar natural hollow on the foot, but because we have arch problems and our feet fall in, we'll fall in and we'll actually press the inside of the arch and the bubbling well down to the ground. And that is an error. The bubbling well should not be actually touching the ground. It should be like a vacuum cup. If you have a vacuum cup and you push it down so there's no space inside there, then there's no vacuum, then the vacuum cup doesn't stick. And the way vacuum cups work is you get the air out, but the cup itself makes a little space, so now there's a vacuum. So there's something that keeps it sucked to the thing it's attached to. Same thing needs to happen in your foot. So you'll notice I haven't said anything about the toes. When we first learned, the way that our teachers talked was we talked about everything being on the toes. White crane, you'd say that the empty foot is on the toes. Whatever move you pick where you're on the toe. We'd always talk about the toes. And that's a little confusing because the important part is the front of the ball. We've tried to rework our language over the years so that we always say ball instead of toe. It's not impossible that sometimes I'll say toe because that's the way the language we used initially. But our teachers meant the ball. They didn't mean the toes, the little thing sticking out of your foot. They meant the ball, the part that's still inside the sole. And so you want to be really clear about the distinction between the ball and the toes. So stand here in the opening move, just standing. And I want you to feel each foot. So start with your right foot and feel the heel. And you can, your weight may move around a little bit. Really get the heel on the ground. And now connect the ball behind the big toe and then connect the ball behind the little toe. So you've got the 3 points of the tripod down there. The toes should just relax, like a string mop where the strings are just spreading out on the ground. The toes just say, ah. You're not gripping the ground with the toes. Go ahead and grip the ground with the toes and feel what that did to the points of the tripod and the ball, right? You lost them. So let the toes relax and feel the weight dropping through the heel, the ball behind the big toe, the ball behind the little toe. Now pay attention to your left foot. Get the heel in place. That may move your weight back a little bit. That's okay. Get the ball behind the big toe touching. Get the ball behind the little toe touching. Feel the tripod there. Feel your toes relaxing like the string mop spreading out. Grip the ground with your toes. See what that did to the ball of that foot. And now relax and let it be there. So the toes are just there. So when we step, when we shift, what we do, we might have barking in a second. It looks like we're getting a delivery, but hopefully I'm the only one who notices, not Valerie. When we step and you're coming forward, as you do this, you gradually peel the rear foot off the ground and you make sure the ball stays connected. As soon as the leg rolls onto the toes, you should have stepped. So this place where I am now, where the rear foot is on the toes, is a place that we don't spend any time in Tai Chi. You might go through there, but you don't spend any time there. So I'm coming up, 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 up. The ball is connected. It goes on the toes, and I step, heel first. So this is the hero stroll, strolling heroically. Do it with me for a couple seconds, and then we'll put it in the 70-30s. So I guess we'll walk this way, because whatever. So step forward with your left foot. I'm just going to step. I'm not going to do the rocking forward and back. Come up on the front foot, and see how long you can leave the rear heel down. Stand up on the front foot and let it gradually peel the rear heel off the ground, but keep the ball connected. And then let the ball disconnect and step. Sit down, put the front foot on the ground, shift underground. Stand up the front foot, gradually peel the rear heel off the ground. Make sure the ball is still connected, and then step. Again, coming up the front foot, stop when the ball of the rear foot is connected. Feel that feeling in the rear leg. It's a little bit like when we were sitting back and we didn't let the front foot turn. And now let the rear leg come onto the toes. Feel that your knee dropped, and feel how all the life, all the oomph in that leg went away. And so now when you step, you just have to move the foot. And sit down, underground. Come up the front leg, peeling the heel of the rear foot off the ground gradually. Keep the ball connected. Feel that sensation you have in your rear leg. And now let it go. Come up on the toes and let the knee drop. And see what it takes to step. Now you have to just move the leg. So once more on each side. Come up the front leg. Peel the heel of the rear foot off the ground. Keep the ball connected. There's a dynamic tautness and aliveness in the foot. And when you release that, let that affect the step. And once more, underground, up the front leg till the heel is off the ground. The ball is still connected. You've got that dynamic aliveness and tautness in the leg. Release it and let that cause the step. And take a break. So this is the same thing again. We're creating the condition where when we let go, the foot can move, as opposed to moving the foot, right? When I don't get the right condition right, when I come up here and I let my rear foot go on the toe, I have no choice but force. I have to just lift this leg up and place it. When I do the other thing, when I'm here and I've got this dynamic, alive, taut potential in the leg, I can release that potential and I can cause it to step. So you spending time with the hero's stroll is always good, and it'll help you find heel and ball. And so we do the same thing in the brush knees. I'm here, I've come into the brush knee, and I sit back, moving the front foot because I turn my waist. As I come forward, the heel of the rear foot comes off the ground. The ball is still connected. And then I release it, and that's what makes it step. If instead I come forward and I allow the rear foot to drop, so just the toe is connected, the knee dropped, now I'm going to have to pick that foot up, haul it over, put it down. May not look very different on the outside, feels really different. So let's do marching a couple more times. And I want you to really try to do all the things with the feet we're talking about. I want you to move the front foot by releasing it in the process of spiraling. I want you to feel the rear foot connected to the ball and then release it and let it step. I don't care what you do with the hands. It may be easier to make the brush knee shapes with the hands so you know where you are. That's great. If you want to just drop the hands, that's fine too. So start, we've just turned and we're going to strike with heel. And bring everything back and step. Okay, shift. Okay, and here's the first one. Spiraling, and let that move the front foot. Come forward and watch how the heel peels off the ground. The ball is still connected, and then let it go and let that step. And shift. Sit back, spiraling. Release the front leg, that turns it. Come forward, peel the rear heel off the ground. Stop when the ball is still connected. Feel that dynamic action in your foot. Release it and step. Brush knee. Spiraling back, letting the front foot pivot. Shifting. Heel comes off the ground. Ball is still connected. You feel that line from the rear foot through the body. Release. brush knee. Sit back and spiral. Come forward. Heel comes off the ground, ball is still connected. Release and step. Brush knee. Okay, now let's do everything wrong. Let's force our front foot to turn. Let's let our rear foot come up onto the ball, right? So I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to be here. I'm going to force my front foot to turn. I'm going to let my rear foot come on the ball. I'm going to step it. I'm going to come through. I'm going to force my front foot to turn and let my rear foot come up on the toe. I'm going to step it so that I'm not using the spiral to turn the front foot. I'm forcing the front foot, and I'm not creating the conditions in the rear leg. I'm letting all the air out by letting the foot land on the toe. And this will feel crummy. So, ta-da, step and shift. Okay, pick your front foot up and turn. Shift, let your rear foot come onto the toe. Haul that leg around. Brush knee. Force the front foot. Shift, rear foot on the toes. Nothing in it. Force it, step. Brush knee. Sort of, kind of, because you can't really do brush knee like that. Force the front foot. Let the air out of the rear leg. Step. Something kind of like brush knee. Sit back. Force the front foot. Let the air out of the rear leg. Force the step. Something like brush knee. Okay, so that sucks. Let's do it once more and really try to have that dynamic action in the legs, waist, and feet. So, striking with heel, and go. Spiral, release the front foot. Ball of the rear foot, release to step. Spiral, release the front foot. Ball of the rear foot, release to step. Once more each side. Spiral, release the front foot. Ball of the rear foot, release to step. Spiral the body, release the front foot. Peel the heel, ball of the rear foot, release to step. Actually brush knee. So this should feel really different. We haven't talked about the arms or any of that stuff yet. We'll get to that. But you got to have the foundation, the basis. It is rooted in the feet, released through the legs, directed by the waist, and then all this jazz happens in the hands. So we want to start with the feet, legs, and waist. And do this. In this room, I will often just march around in circles or march forward and back doing brush knee over and over and over. And 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times is not too much. And what you're doing is you're not trying to check out, you're not spacing out. What you're doing is you're focusing on individual things. So you're focusing on the front leg that it releases in order to turn. And, if you spend 20 brush knees focusing on that, and then 20 brush knees focusing on the rear leg, that you come up to the ball, and then you release in order to step. That will change the way the move feels, and you'll find that it changes the whole rest of your form. So stay rooted in the feet, and we will be back soon.